Beautiful 24 degrees Celsius here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Good morning and welcome to your daily dose of sunshine, Sunrise Daily, here on Channels Television. I'm Mao Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makine. It's 26 degrees here in Lagos, and I don't know what it is in your own environment, whichever one it is. I don't think that the cold in the night has quite subsided, but hey, it still saves us electricity resources, doesn't it?
It does, certainly, and no one is complaining about that, Ayo. I can tell you that in Abuja here, sometimes it looks like it's about to rain, but it's just been cloudy. Yeah. I think no one is complaining, especially now that the children are still on holiday. Well, quite a number of schools. It does appear that gradually we're seeing some schools coming back, but I think the majority of schools will be back next week. So yeah. Is that season where parents are busy shopping back to school for their kids, for those who haven't done that already. But I digress. The issue we're looking at this morning is the ripples that have been caused by the conversation granted by the former governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, who was on a sister program here on Sunday. On Sunday Politics, Nasir El-Rufai was the guest, and he did make some startling allegations against the Office of the National Security Advisor, alleging that part of the reason why there's been some quiet, it would seem, in Kaduna State is because the Office of the National Security Advisor has been encouraging governors, it would seem, to pay bandits. He did allege that the current governor of the state, Ubasani, is currently or has paid as much as R1 billion to bandits. And his policy, he says, will not work. Well, yesterday, the Office of the National Security Advisor did respond to that statement, not taking it lightly. They say that his statements are false, baseless, and contradicting verifiable facts. A statement from the Office of the National Security Advisor signed by Zachary Minji-Yawa, that's Minji-Yawa, indicates that the government has consistently warned Nigerians against paying ransom and will not be going against what it preaches. Now, part of the statement says, at no time has the Office of the National Security Advisor or any arm of government under this administration engaged in ransom payments or inducements to criminals. Well, the statement goes on, but essentially that's the meat of the matter. Well, the governor of Kaduna State, the former governor, has not kept quiet on that particular matter. He's pushed back again. This morning, another statement attributed to him, published in the Guardian newspapers, from what we understand, it says, it's titled Part 1 of 3 to the government's accusation of politicizing national security. He described the statement from the Office of the National Security Advisor as predictable hot air. So that's what he thinks that they are. He says, as usual, the combined voices of the government of Kaduna State and the Office of the National Security Advisor, instead of responding to the core issues I raised, seek to deflect responsibility by alleging that exposing them amounts to politicizing security. Well, so security continues to be at the heart of it at the end of the day, but then the questions as to whether or not this policy, this alleged policy, is what is actually responsible for the peace that has been experienced in Kaduna State. This morning, we're joined by the national president of the Southern Kaduna People's Union, SOKAPU. We have with us Samuel Taraba Kato, who is our guest this morning and is joining us virtually. Mr. Taraba Kato, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning. I'm sure that you must have listened to the former governor of your state when he did make these allegations, and you heard that of the Office of the National Security Advisor, and also you've also heard the pushback from the former governor once more. You live in Kaduna State, and it will seem that when insecurity was the issue in Kaduna State, your people bore the brunt. Can you tell us what exactly you know about this matter?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mope. It's a pleasure being with you. When El-Rufai comes out to make statement, I feel a sense of sympathy for him. This is a man who had been described by former President Obasanjo as a pathological liar and a madman. Each time El-Rufai comes out to conduct himself, he continues to prove this character well said by President Obasanjo about him. El-Rufai, no sooner he was inaugurated as governor of Kaduna State, among the first utterances he made was that there are only 30% Christians in Kaduna State. And he didn't stop there. He went to say that the Southern Kaduna people should ignore the issue of indigenes and settlers dichotomy. That is his panacea for peace, alluding that the attacks in Southern Kaduna were something of a communal clash. Yet it is the same El-Rufai who told the world that he traveled to Chad, Niger, and Mali and compensated the herdsmen killers. And the same man today is coming out to say that it is wrong to pay compensation to bandits. Now, in the history of this bandit attacks in this country, El-Rufai had been the first person to, demonstrate the idea of paying compensation to bandits. And for him now to come and condemn it, the governance of El-Rufai. El-Rufai see governance as a license to do and undo. Here is a man, few days to his departure as a governor, roll out bulldozers to a community in Southern Kaduna and started pulling down houses. You see, he has confirmed the character ascribed to him as a madman. And
Mr. Terabakato, I do know, in all honesty, that there is no love lost between the people, well, I say SOKAPU, your union, and, the former governor of your state. However, I'm still going to request that you, mind the choice of words that you use. You made reference to former President Olusegun Obasanjo saying that he described him as a pathological liar. Now, the former governor of your state served as a minister. It's unclear what happened between himself and the former president. However, if you have evidence that in this particular matter which we have brought up, that he is lying, I think that the right thing to do will be to, point out precisely what exactly the lies are about and the evidence you have to the contrary.
Okay. If statistics is something to go by, the INEC records on registered voters, we have 4.3 million voters registered, and we have approximately 1.9 of these voters from Southern Kaduna. And for El-Rufai to say that Southern Kaduna people or Christians in the state are less than 25%, it is not correct, because credible data shows the contrary. And if you have to make this kind of statement, one should, be diligent enough to make reference. And he makes this kind of statement spuriously, no backup, data to, and to make true his claims. So El-Rufai is simply not telling the truth. And in several instances, he has come out to make statements which were found to be untrue. For example, he claimed at a time that 66 Fulani were killed in Kaduna. And only for that information to be found to be false. And several other areas like this, he has made statements that are found to be untrue. So for me, I want to even plead with the news media to exercise restraint in bringing El-Rufai into the public space, because he does not add value to news information. Lies and propaganda don't help the society. And when we know that somebody continue to conduct himself in this area, I think we should think of how we can help him rather than bringing him into public discourse.
I think that, first, the former governor of Kaduna State is not one that can be dismissed. He was the governor of your state for 8 years. He also served as a minister in the cabinet of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. He's an author. He also has, quite a number of, let's say, qualifications, so to speak. So, as everyone would say, he has the freedom as a Nigerian, as a bona fide Nigerian. He has the opportunity and the freedom to be able to express himself should the need arise. However, the issue that has come up here, and which you have also alluded to, is the issue of paying ransom to bandits. There have been questions before now as to, it does appear that there is some quiet in Kaduna State. And he attributes that, it will seem, to the payment of ransom to bandits. Yes, indeed, he had acknowledged, and this was not something that was very well known at the time when he granted an interview to Channels Television, precisely Sunrise Daily, when he did tell us that to bring peace to Kaduna State, he had to pay some people who were aggrieved, compensation, it would seem, to some people who were aggrieved at the time, because according to him, their cattle and some of their people were caught up in a crisis, in the post-election crisis that was happening in Nigeria at the time. And he said that those people, just so as to buy peace, it would seem, he had to pay some compensation. He was the one who said it openly. And much later, when it was seen that that policy did not work, or when it was seen that other governors in that area, in the northwest area of Nigeria, were coming together to, compensate bandits, he opted out of that narrative because, according to him, that experiment had not worked. In this instance, he is saying that it would seem that part of the reason why there's been some quiet is that bandits are being settled. According to him, bandits are being kissed. That's what he said. Now, the thing is, if that is really the situation, don't you think that the people of your state, the people of Nigeria, are owed the truth, clarity in this instance?
Well, I can say categorically that there is relative calmness in terms of insecurity in Kaduna State. Yes, that is not to say that we don't experience some pockets of attacks here and there. but not in the scale they used to happen under El-Rufai. And I am not in position to say as a fact that this government of Senator Ubasani is compensating bandits or not. But all I can be able to tell you is that there is relative peace, and we have a reasonable measure of security in the state. However, as a Nigerian, I do not believe that paying compensation to bandits is going to solve the problem. It will only mean that we are reinforcing insecurity in the state or the country at large. There should be a more reliable, a more stringent measure that will make banditry impossible, or bring it down to the barest minimum, but certainly not the area of compensation.
Well, I do know that my colleague Ayo has questions for you as well. So over now to you, Ayo.
Yes, thank you very much, Malpoe. So, one question that I'd like to ask is also taking perhaps from what Mr. El-Rufai said. He said the only repentant bandit is the dead one. Let's kill them all. Leading me to this question: do you think, as a nation or at the state levels, we are being decisive enough in our affront against banditry and kidnapping and all that? I ask that because those who would say generally our response to all of this criminality being conducted, they are largely dismal. Consequently, it's not strong enough to deter people from doing what is not right, particularly against the state. Do you think we're being decisive enough in our action against banditry and kidnapping?
I agree with you that we are not doing enough, going by the capacity of the Nigerian security agencies. We should not pretend that the issue of insecurity and banditry has gone political. And it is not impossible that the sponsors of this insecurity are also people in government. Otherwise, how do you explain it? Here we have security personnel that perform wonderfully abroad, and only to appear handicapped in dealing with local insecurity. I want to say that the kind of orders given to the military to confront these bandits needs to be stronger. And only recently, the chief of defense staff came out to say that the military in whatever locations they find themselves should respond immediately without waiting for further orders, to tackle any security challenge within their vicinity. Before then, it was not like that. The attacks can just go on, just a few meters away from the military checkpoints, and the military will just be quiet, and you talk to them and say, no, we do not have order to go to that area. And the chief of the defense staff, in his pragmatic leadership, has, removed that. And with that, there is greater latitude for the military to respond to insecurity. challenge within whatever area they occupy. So we need to see greater of this. And the police, look, in my own opinion, even the Nigerian police, if given full cooperation by the federal government, will deal with this insecurity in less than no time. But like I said earlier, when politics have gone into an issue, it becomes complicated. There is no clear decision, no clear action taken. And so we as Nigerians should continue to voice out, because these people are within our communities, those in government positions are within our communities. We continue to voice out and mount pressure on them until they cave in to our own pressure and desist from the unpatriotic acts they are unleashing on Nigeria. Look, please, let's not pretend about it. This is what is happening. So those who are behind this insecurity, they should be made to back down. That is my own take on this.
Mr. Tabara, who will do that? Who will take them on, if not government? Particularly, I mean, you'll probably also remember, you may want to validate or refute it. In January, it would seem like the government of Kaduna State, the current government of Kaduna State, had a kind of a peace pact, excuse me, with terrorists or bandits, whichever name you want to call them, just to ensure that there is peace. Can you speak to that? I mean, just as you said, we know them. I mean, even governors, sitting governors have said that we know who these people are. And then you have also alluded to the political impact. Is it because of this political agreement or understanding that the government also agreed to enter into, decided to enter into an agreement with, a peace pact agreement with these bandits?
Continued engagement with these bandits in the name of peace pact, what have you, is simply reinforcing their campaign. And I can tell you, it is more or less like affirming to them that they have established an industry that the government will continue to reckon with. This approach is not going to give us the needed result. What will give us the needed result is a comprehensive pack of action that will make banditry impossible. All agencies of security and governance are to work in synergy in ensuring this. The immigration, the civil defense, the Nigerian police, Nigerian army, Nigerian navy should all tighten the noose around their areas of operation, and with the determination to eliminate these bandits.
Well, I guess time. Yes, I guess time will tell, because at the end of the day, it's the lives of the people that are at stake here, and where everyone has to do what needs to be done to ensure that people live in peace and security all of their lives, and not just something for the interim, but on a permanent basis. We have to thank you so much for your time this morning. Samuel Tabara Kato is the National President, Southern Kaduna People's Union, SOKAPU. We appreciate your time and your perspectives.
Thank you very much.
The Africa Chief of Defense Staff Summit, which held in Abuja just about last week, came to an end successfully. And some people did praise that particular summit, saying it was timely, while some others felt that, well, maybe that meeting was not necessary, so to speak. One of the guests we had on the program, who was a retired military general, had other opinions on it and thought that that was not something that was necessary. And he believes that if we have more arrangement within African countries, then perhaps, those kinds of summits might not be necessary. But others disagree and say that, look, summits like that are timely, given the nature of the sort of security threats that we currently have in our country. But just not to let the lessons from that particular summit pass this morning, we're being joined by Major General Emeka Onumajuru, who's the Chief of Defense Operation. Good morning, General. It's good to have you with us.
Good morning. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Just before we go into the conversation proper, I think that we can have a summary of the discussions that happened last week.
Africa faces existential threats from multifaceted security challenges, including armed political conflict, terrorism, militancy, sea piracy, and banditry. To combat these threats to regional peace and security on the continent, the chiefs of defense staff and representatives of the armed forces from 54 African countries converged on Abuja, Nigeria's capital, for the maiden African Chiefs of Defense Staff Summit. Vice President Kashim Shettima is representing President Bola Tinubu at the event, which also attracts former Nigeria security chiefs, past and present lawmakers, diplomats, and international development partners. The focus of the summit is on strengthening strategic defense collaboration.
The threats of today are no longer confined to conventional warfare. They are digital, asymmetric, and often invisible. The enemy is within. As chiefs of defense staff and heads of our armed forces, we must lead the charge in modernizing our forces, investing in cyber defense, artificial intelligence, and indigenous military technology, without which it will be difficult for us to achieve our security.
The ECOWAS Commission announces some interventions, including a 260,000 rapid deployment force.
While ECOWAS remains firmly committed to raising its 5,000-man brigade under the auspices of the African Peace and Security Architecture, and more particularly the Continental Standby Force, the activation of this rapid deployment force has become a necessity given the asymmetric security dynamics in the region.
The keynote speaker is the United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, and she says Africa is not a bystander in global security, as she calls for collaboration in digital security infrastructure.
We need the right tools and mapping in place to plan and to drive strategy at scale, reinforcing the Accra Initiative, the ECOWAS Standby Force, and giving the Joint Threat Fusion and Analysis Cell the support it needs to ensure data become decisions. The same applies at sea, joint patrols that make the Yaoundé architecture real protection for people and infrastructure. And innovation must be part of our defense, collaborating on AI from drones to cyber tools, and building on African Union's AI strategy can help us to set common standards to keep technology serving people.
She emphasizes strong institutions and democracy that focus on building the people.
We know that every additional year of schooling reduces the likelihood of a young person joining armed groups by up to 13%. This evidence begs the question, how do we invest in peace? Is it just military spending? Is it development spending? Is it both? That is the discussion that we will need to have in this room and beyond. And it means tackling root causes. It means democracy that is robust and representative, not on constitutional changes dressed up as solutions. While this might seem legitimate in many eyes, in the longer term, democracy and by extension security will be weakened. Instead, strong institutions underpinned by strong democracies and strong security apparatus are the safeguard against instability.
For Vice President Kashim Shettima, who is representing President Bola Tinubu at the event, Africa must stand united in fighting its common enemies.
What is true of our challenges must also be true of our resolve. We cannot neutralize these threats in isolation. This is the moment to reassess our military objectives in the collective aspirations to make Africa safe. It is time to forge a new doctrine of continental defense, one rooted in trust, shared intelligence, and coordinated strategy. Nigeria's promise has always been simple and firm: to be a good neighbor and a brother's keeper in the struggle for peace. Our armed forces have stood shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors and far beyond in peacekeeping missions, counter-terrorism operations, and humanitarian endeavors. We hold no illusion. Security is the foundation upon which the edifice of progress must stand.
Over the next 3 days, 5 panel sessions are expected to hold with different speakers who will address different areas of security, including border management and regional security in Africa, the imperative of strategic defense collaboration in combating terrorism, as well as leveraging artificial intelligence for regional security in Africa. From the Bola Ahmed Tinubu International Conference Center, Abuja, Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Well, I did introduce our guest earlier. You're welcome once more to the program. And that video which we just played, that report which we just played, was the summary of the opening ceremony. Quite a number of people came there with their agenda, and quite a number of them, you know, had expectations of the summit, some of which I'll expect you to delve into shortly. However, just before we get there, I'd like your quick reaction on the jailing of Simon Ekpa in Finnish court just yesterday. That news came in yesterday. We know that that's something that the CDS had, you know, pursued. He said that they wanted the prosecution, if possible, the extradition of Simon Ekpa. So how does the, will I say, defense headquarters, how are they reacting to this piece of news?
I will start by first, as always, I want to commend our troops in the front line. I always like to use every opportunity to reassure them to keep on the hard work and good work they are doing. Now, going back to Simon Ekpa, I think the outcome is a strong, very strong statement of our resolve to bring all criminals to book. Wherever you may be, the arms of the law. It might take time, but it will definitely get to you. So it sends a signal to his cohorts back at home that if the arm of the law can reach him in faraway inland, then definitely if you are within our borders, the arms of the law will also catch up with you. And justice will always be served, no matter how late. So it's a very big win for all of us, for Nigerians, to bring him to book. At least that keeps him out of circulation for some time.
So that was the effort of the Nigerian government?
Yes, efforts of the Nigerian government, definitely, with the defense working under the Nigerian government. It's always
I just wanted to be sure that, you know, because some people might just think, I know that there has been some conversation with the government of Finland, but, you know, it's unclear if that was what resulted in the prosecution itself. Were we directly involved in any way?
Definitely, the government-to-government relation must have played its own part in terms of making sure that justice is served. So the support of the government of Nigeria, the interface of the government of Nigeria with the government of Finland can never be ruled out. That's a key part of it. And don't forget that initially, until the defense headquarters called him out, until the CDS called him out, it was like on a cruise. So calling him out will set out all the other conditions that made it possible for the outcome of what we just experienced.
Are you satisfied with how long he's been put away for? 6 years?
To me, it's a win-win. 6 years, even if it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, it sends a statement. That statement that the arm of the law, that the Nigerian government have the reach, wherever you are, through collaboration with other countries to get at you. It's a very powerful statement, which I'm very happy about.
Let's go to this summit, which has now come to an end, and the different agendas which people had come to the summit with. How much of it would you say was achieved at the end of the day?
The summit is a very bold and courageous effort by the Chief of Defense Staff, General C.J. Musa, to rally other African Chiefs of Defense Staff to start looking at developing regional strategy to deal with the challenges we face. And if you look at the sheer number of the participants, 37 countries, that's massive, and that points to the belief that they have that the conference is needed, it's at the right time, and it's something that will happen. Apart from the participants, even the resource persons, you have the Deputy Secretary General there, you have so many eminent personalities taking part. That again points to the value conference. Most of the objectives were met. What is important now is to follow up and implement.
So what exactly are we following up with to implement?
Okay, now the conference had 4 key objectives. One was to develop collective strategies. Collective strategies in the sense that every country should be on the same wavelength in terms of ends, ways, and means. Ends, ways, and means. That is strategy. Secondly, collaboration efforts. It's one thing to agree on a strategy. It's another thing to have a work plan that ensures collaboration. For instance, you have maybe terrorists in, say, Benin Republic. They are pursued. They cross over to border to Nigeria and hide. Or maybe Nigeria is on the offensive, they go to Benin hide. If there is no collaboration between both countries, it becomes difficult. The third issue is resourcing. No matter the amount of plans you have, no matter how good the strategy you have, if you're not resourced, you won't be able to do that. And most African countries have the same problem of lean resourcing in terms of security and defense. So the question is, how do you attract more funding? Of course, the governments have done the best they can do. So it's opinion that tapping into the resources available to the private sector could help out if clearly worked out. So that is also one of the key objectives. How do we get the private sector to participate in issues of defense and security through resourcing? And the last objective was to develop a roundtable, a homegrown roundtable that can look at African problems by Africans without any interference and trying to find solutions. That does not mean that we don't value strategic collaborations. We do. But we also believe that there should be a roundtable made up of chiefs of defense staffs only of African countries. Look at the issues they face critically, profile their solutions. Before now you can think of strategic collaborations. So those were the 4 key objectives. And drawing from those objectives, we're able to look at 5 thematic areas that tend to address these themes. The first is border security. Can we be talking about security in Africa without looking at enhancing the security of the various borders? Because the challenges we face are all transnational. If they are transnational, then there must be a little bit of enhanced security at the border areas. The second thing was counterterrorism efforts. That is the major problem we face in the continent. Terrorism in the Sahel, in the Lake Chad Basin, in Mozambique, in Somalia, Kenya areas, all over the place. So is it possible we'll have a much more elaborate and coordinated counterterrorism efforts that can be reviewed regularly based on how the threat mutates? And of course, the issue of resourcing. We talked about resourcing. How do we get more funds? Maritime security was also another key area. Most of our resources are offshore. How do you secure these maritime areas? We have piracy, we have illegal fishing, unreported, unregulated fishing. Now, if we can be able to have a much more secured maritime area, then our blue economy can thrive, not just for Nigeria, but for the entire Africa. So how do we make that happen? So a lot of decisions were taken along these key areas. So what requires now is to start following up on those decisions and see how they can be implemented. So those are the key areas you should be looking at.
Indeed, I hear you when you talk about collective strategy, collaboration, resourcing, and roundtable. Yes. But then there are those who have criticized this particular meeting. They think that generally that the challenges that a number of African countries face are internal, and that if our internal security apparatus were more, will I say, up to date, up to the beat, that perhaps this meeting would not have been necessary in the first instance. Okay,
I would disagree. First, on the challenges being internal. They are internal, or they are driven by external sources. The core challenges are transnational. Terrorism is a transnational issue. Proliferation of small arms and light weapons is transnational. Illegal migration and the extreme ideologies it brings is transnational. Funding, illegal funding of these activities are all transnational. It's absolutely impossible for a country, no matter how big you are, to be insulated and you have only internal challenges that do not have links to external challenges. That is Absolutely not correct. Not in sub-Saharan Africa. Definitely not in sub-Saharan Africa.
Was this meeting just for sub-Saharan African defense chiefs?
No, it was for the entire African region. But of course, the core challenges in each sub-region was also highlighted. One of the outcomes of the meeting was an agreement to interface more with the AES countries, that is Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, because of the realization that most of the challenges in terms of terrorism are from that area.
Were they represented?
Sure. Niger was available. Mali was there, but Burkina Faso was not available.
How does that, the fact that they've broken away from ECOWAS, I heard the ECOWAS representative there speaking of creating the 5,000-man brigade, and clearly we knew where that was coming from, why ECOWAS had decided, was thinking about that, and also other uses that force could be deployed to, should the need arise. It might not just be security, it might also be in terms of restoring democracy in will I say, I don't want to use the word renegade countries, but for lack of a better phrase, how did they receive that particular submission from ECOWAS being present at that summit?
Well, first, we need to get the framework right. It wasn't an ECOWAS summit.
Indeed.
If it was an ECOWAS summit, maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't be there. It's a summit driven by the Chief of Defense Staff of Nigeria. So now it's more of a bilateral issue, but of course using a multilateral framework. So that was why they were there. Now, ECOWAS have come to the realization that, yes, while these three countries are out of the sub-region, it's still important that we continue to engage them. Very important. And I think that the Commissioner for Peace and Security was clear on that the door is still open. We'll continue to engage them because of the understanding that to address the security problem, it must involve addressing the issues in the Sahel. As long as the Sahel is vulnerable, it's just a question of time before they come to the southern coast. And the upsurge in the challenges we have in the northeast is because of the influx of terrorists from the Sahel. So it's important that the issue in Sahel is addressed jointly. If it's not addressed jointly, then the spillover will get to other countries.
I know my colleague Ayo has questions for you. Over now to you, Ayo.
Well, thank you, Mokwe. Well, General, the issue you just raised now about, dealing with certain things in the Sahel, and all of that, raised this question on my mind, connecting it to something that the CDS also said about border management and regional security. So the straight question there is communities. How do we engage communities in a way that they can co-own this process with us? I'm saying that at the behest of the uproar that came from all the conversation that Mr. El-Rufai put out, and the denials and counter-denials that have followed that, bandits are being paid, the state governments are having conversations with certain bandits at some levels. Are we having conversations with communities in the area of this border management and regional, security that we're talking about?
Yeah, thank you very much. One of the key outcomes of the CDS conference is that border communities should be seen as a developmental zone. Border communities must be recognized as a developmental zone in the sense that without developing border communities, without carrying them on board, like you clearly observe, there is little chance of enhancing border security. How I wish you can have access to the signed communique. You will see what I'm telling you in black and white, that the conference did recognize the important roles that border communities will play. And it's of the view that it should not just be policed. The border zone should be developed. If they are developed, if the locals are part of the process, then the chances of success is much higher. Now, having said that, I think the question will be, how do we implement this? How do we ensure that the border communities are co-owners of the process? How do we ensure that the border communities are developed? I know back here at home there are agencies meant to look at how to develop border communities. How do we get those agencies functioning So as long as the border communities do not feel that they have a stake in the process, then our chances are much low. But if we're on the right track by ensuring that, first, they are enlightened, they have the necessary socio-economic amenities they need to function, we'll win them over, then our chances are much more higher. So I do agree that border communities have a key role to play in this entire process.
Well, still on that same issue, General, I know that the CDS himself had spoken quite some time about the role that state governments have to play in this whole security thing, and that the military can only do its part, play its part, and that the state governments have to play their part as well. Do you think that that collaboration is happening? Here is why I'm asking. Not just in Kaduna, we have heard of some other state governments. I mean, Malquez said it in our conversation earlier. Some state governments decided to adopt the idea of paying bandits just to ensure that there is peace in their communities. I'm almost certain that that is not what the Nigerian army would want, because it would be like there is partnership with these, bandits, a kind of enabling situation. So do you think we have that kind of conversation, particularly with state governments, to ensure that there is understanding of the risks of the actions that are taken and how some of those actions undermine what the military is doing? We also highlighted earlier that the Kaduna State, for instance, has a peace pact with bandits. That's the way it is in the statement of the governor of the state.
Yes, thank you very much. I think first I'll look at it from a broader perspective. In the first instance, do the armed forces cooperate, dialogue with state governments in terms of ensuring security in the various states? I think the answer is yes. We work with state governments. Now, going deeper into the specifics of paying bandits or not, that definitely the armed forces is not involved in that. There is a national DDR program that is anchored around Operation Safe Corridor. Now we'll have two of those in the northeast, situated in Gombe, in the northwest, situated in Southeast Zamfara State. Now, the essence of these national frameworks is for bandits who clearly want another route to living criminality. Your hands up, you surrender your weapons, you're profiled in detail. Those that are found really culpable face the law. Now, this is coordinated by the Ministry of Justice. Those that are found not to be very culpable, don't forget that some of the people were forcefully conscripted, kept in the bush for God knows how. Now, once it is decided that this set of people are not really culpable after a detailed profiling, those people are transferred to the DDR centers in Gombe, Malam City, and they start going through the DDR process. The Armed Forces of Nigeria does not support the payment of money to criminal groups. The Armed Forces of Nigeria is not part of that arrangement. However, the Armed Forces of Nigeria have a DDR program with other stakeholders, Ministry of Justice, Office of National Security Advisor, for criminals that have shown remorse and want to toe the line for peace, to surrender their weapons, undergo a thorough profiling to ensure the extent of their culpability, and then they are transferred for the DDR program.
So, General, lastly, from my side, what would you advise the state governments that are in this practice, or those who may be considering it? The argument that they have is they want to do everything they can to protect the lives and property of their people. And we have had even local governments having this kind of conversation with bandits, so to speak. What would you advise? Since the military, as you said, is not part of it, what would you advise?
I think what I would advise is that from previous experience, believe you me, it does not work. It does not work. It's just a question of time before they come back. I remember this have been tried by the same states you're talking about in Kaduna before now, several years back. It doesn't really work. So that is why the military is focused on the kinetic aspects of the operation and then keeping the non-kinetic open, which is through the National DDR framework.
Well, right now, this summit has come to an end. We still have the challenges that we have with us. In the coming days, what can Nigerians look to see as the outcome from the summit, which will be implemented? As you have said, implementation is where you're looking to, and how it's going to translate in improving the security situation in our country?
Yes, first, I must state that the outcomes of the conference, it's not that they are entirely new. Some of them are already being done. But what the conference have done now is to increase the intensity. For instance, when we talk about joint training, for instance, we'll do that. We'll offer a lot of training slots to neighboring countries to come train in our strategic institutions like the National Defense College. In terms of joint operation, yes, the multinational joint task force is there. But what the chiefs of defense staff have said is that the commitment, the interoperability must be more, and they are ready to devote much more resources to these areas. And a key benefit is the increased military-to-military interface. Military-to-military interface.
Some people think that should be domiciled in your office, though, operations.
Yes, but don't forget we have also a department, policy and plans, that is in charge of defense diplomacy and military contacts in conjunction with the operations.
So we'll be seeing a lot more collaboration in that regard. A lot more
collaboration in that regard.
Well, we have to thank you. We'll be looking forward to it. We are looking forward to an improvement of the security situation in our country as we commend the men and officers of our military services. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning.
Thank you very
Major
much.
General Emeka Onumajuru is the Chief of Defense Operation and has been speaking to us on the outcome of the Africa Chief of Defense Summit. Thank you once more.
Thank you.
Well, that's where we wrap it up on today's edition of Sunrise Daily. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Maope Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Business Morning is next. Have a good day.